Okay. We're going to start today on the bottom of Yudamid base. It's 10b. 10b. In the very last line. We're discussing that the nizik, the victim. First of all, we thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. And the schus of our learning, we shall have the base of Mikdash. I'm going to stop a little early today because I have to run to the airport. How early? About 6:15. Okay. So we're discussing that the nizik, the victim, has to keep the carcass or the broken pieces of whatever was damaged, and then the mazik, the perpetrator, has to pay the difference of value between what it was worth originally and what it's worth now as a carcass. So the Gemara now says, let's say, okay, so when we got into that, so we said we were saying that it's as if the mazik is already paying him back by giving him the broken pieces or the carcass. They said we know that already. You can give him subin, you can give him bran. So he said the difference is that what we mean to say is that it actually belongs to the nizik, not that it's being paid by the mazik. It belongs to the nizik. And then if it gets worth less, in between, after it gets damaged, and by the time they stand in court and it comes time for payment, so we say that's the nizik's loss, because the damage that the perpetrator made was only from the moment that when it was complete to when it broke, and at that moment it had a certain difference in price, and that's what he owes. Later on it got worth less because it started to smell or whatever, the carcass. So you say that's the nizik's problem. Okay, so now the Gemara says worth more. It could have become worth more as well.
Then the guy has to pay less.
No, then he has to pay. That's the nizik's advantage. Okay. Yeah. So let us say that the difference in value, the depreciation of the carcass, is actually a machlekes tanoim who suffers that loss. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. The brisa says, it quotes a pasuk, "In tarif yiviu aid." If it was torn up, you have to bring a witness. Now it's talking about the shemer sachar, the paid watchman. That if an accident happens, he doesn't have to pay for the damages, and he brings a witness that it was an accident. Now yaviu eidim shenitra ba'inus upater. He brings witnesses that it was torn, like let's say a wolf or a fox came in and harmed this animal. Let's say it was a little lamb or something. So then he brings those witnesses, and then he's going to be exempt. Abba Shol says yavi eduda lebezdin. Now there's a bunch of different variations of this word. Rashi has the word eduda. Tosfos has arura or edura. There's a bunch of different variations, but the idea over here is that you have to bring the carcass. Rashi quotes a pasuk that says in the blessings that Yaakov gave to Binyamin, in Parshas Vayechi, it says in the morning, Binyamin zev yitref. He's a zev is a wolf. Binyamin is a wolf that prays. In the morning he eats his prey, and so ad would mean prey. Not with an A, with an E, right? And so here it means you bring the prey to the best. And what does it mean you bring the prey to the best? It means you bring the carcass to the best, and that's what Abba Shol is saying. Now, who has to bring it? It doesn't tell me who exactly has to bring it, but the idea is that it's being brought in order to tell me how much it's worth, because we're going to have to look at what its value is, and then to see what it's depreciated and all of that. So what comes out is, my lab b'hakam miflagi. What is it not that this is the machlekes? The Mar Savar, talking about, the master says, or the first master would be Abba Shol. Abba Shol holds chas nevela denizikavi, that it belongs the depreciation of value of the carcass would belong to the victim. And that's why he says you have to bring it to Bezdin, because we want to see what its value is at the time of the damage to work this out. And the Mar Savar and the Tanakama would hold the Mazakavi that it belongs to the Mazik, that it belongs to the perpetrator. And which means that he doesn't own it, he can just use it to pay. It's not no, not that he doesn't know. The victim doesn't own it. The perpetrator ends up with all the pieces and he can use it to pay. But it's his, if it gets worth less, if it depreciates in between the time of the damage and the time of payment, so he's actually paying less, he's going to have to fill that in because he ends up with the broken pieces. Yeah, that's what we're discussing over here. Well,
so Mazik is perpetrator. The victim is what?
Nizik. Yeah, this was confusing. I remember when did they teach us this? I don't know if it was 5th grade, 6th grade, but there was that was like the first thing you had to know was that the Mazik is the perpetrator, the Nizik is the victim. And if you get confused with that, then you're lost for. It's like in Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah. You can't get confused with that. That's the. But it's hard in English too. You have employee, employer. You have damagee, damager. You know. But I guess there's a rule, right? The E is the receiver.
Yeah.
What's it done? The E
in English.
Oh,
employee.
And
the nun is the receiver, and
the nun is receiver, and the
mazik is the.
That's the only way to remember.
Mazik sounds like
no, it comes from the word nezek. It's damage.
Yeah. So this disagreement, I haven't seen a mention of a pasuk here. So this is all the rabbis trying to work out what's the best thing to do. I take it.
Yeah, but I think that he's using the pasuk of imtarif yitarif yaviu aid. That he says that the aid is referring to the word iduda, which means that if it gets torn, you have to bring the carcass. Now,
who's bringing it and who has this risk?
Oh, so 1 second before we discuss who's bringing it, but it has to be brought. Okay. Now, based on that reading of it, that if aid instead of means bring a witness means bring the carcass, that means the carcass really belongs to the nizik, and we have to estimate like what it was at the time of damage to see how much the mazik needs to pay.
So they also don't agree. I also disagree about the meaning of the pasuk, and they disagree about what to do after that too.
Yeah, well, I don't think that Abba Shaul is actually reading the pasuk differently. I think he's just making a drasha on the pasuk. He says, "I know what it means literally, because we're dealing over here with a shemer sachar. You have to follow it like this. We're dealing with the shemer sachar. Tarif yitarif means it got torn. It got torn means it got torn by accident. Yaviu aid means to bring a witness. Now you don't need to pay anything if it was an accident and it was a shemer sachar. It was what's Inus? Yeah. Unpreventable circumstances. Unpreventable. You don't have to pay anything. So you don't have to even bring it. It's exempt entirely, right? So so what we're talking about now is that we're switching the case in order to get the drasha in. We're switching the case that the shemer sachar had a pshia. The shemer sachar is now the mazik. Shemer sachar turns into the mazik because there was a pshia here. Yaviu aid, they have to bring the carcass to see what the shemer sachar now has to pay. So there's a huge shift in the drasha from what the pasuk really means. Yeah. Because in order to get the drasha in, we have to change the scenario. So Rashi points that out in this big Rashi. Okay, now the Gemara goes on and it says V'hatanya. Now this V'hatanya is different than most V'hatanyas. Most V'hatanyas is, but we learned in a brisa Vaha means in but. But it turns out that over here, Vaha means and this. Instead of in but, it means in this, because Vaha could have two meanings. So Vaha Tanya, and this is what was taught in a Brisa. Rashi writes that this is Benichusa. This is said not in question form. This is brought as a statement and as a proof. Acherim Maimrim, others say, now in the Brisa, we don't, not necessarily as Acherim Reb Meir, but in the Mishnah, Acherim would be Reb Meir. Right? Or maybe it is Reb Meir also. I think we had a taste for somewhere back in sometime this year, maybe Yavamas or something. If a Brisa, if Acherim is, no, Yavamas was 2 years ago. If Acherim is, well, it must have been in Gittin. Acherim, I'd rather say, Minayin shal balabar lahalisha midbar. How do you know that the one that dug the pit has to be the one to lift the carcass out of the pit? Well, it's only 9 or 10 tvachim, but nevertheless, if it's 400 pounds, so it's a big deal. So you have to get a tow truck. So how do you know that he's the one that has to lift it out of the pit? It's funny, it divides the pasuk, it puts the comma in the wrong place. It says that the money needs to be returned, needs to be paid to the owner. And the pasuk continues, it says, Vahamesi Alai, and the carcass belongs to him. Now, we had a whole discussion what Vahamesi Alai means, who's the him. But whatever the case is, right, who's the him? But
how's the truck? Because that's usually how you know.
Yeah, so the truff is off in this drasha. It's supposed to be kesef yashiv labalav v'hamesi alai, right? So two tabashal. So 1 second. So what we're going to say now is kesef yashiv labalav v'hames. You put the comma then after v'hames. So what's going to happen is that the money needs to be returned to the payment needs to be made, and the corpse. The money in the corpse goes to the one that's the victim, which follows Abishol, who says that
only kid.
That the corpse belongs to the victim, right? Yeah. Right. Commas save lives. Okay. Amalei Abaya Rava. Abaya says to Rava, Hi Terech Nevela Hichidami. We just learned that the bother of getting the corpse out of the pit and bringing it is on the onus of that is on the perpetrator. Abaya asks Rava, what's going on over here? Is taking the carcass out of the pit. Do you think that in the pit it's worth 1 zuz? And then when you get it out of the pit, aguda means at the edge of the pit, it means on the rim, on the top. Then it becomes worth 4. In the pit, it's worth nothing, right? When you get it out, so then it's more usable, so then maybe it has more value. So then why do we need the pasuk to tell me that he's the one that's supposed to take it out? Of course he's going to take it out. He's the one that saves them, that makes the money on this, because it becomes worth more when you get it out of the pit. Gemara says, Amarlei, Leitzricha, it's necessary, this is Rava talking to Abaya, it doesn't change the price. In the pit it was worth 1. When you take it out of the pit, it's worth 1. And nevertheless, he's the one that has to take it out. He's not making any money, and the pasuk says he has to take it out. The Gemara says, is there such a thing that there's no delivery fee? There's nothing like that. It says that's the ha'amri inchi kshura b'masik bezuza, kshura b'dabra bezuza. People say that a beam in the city costs a zuz, and a beam in the field also costs a zuz. That the price of lumber doesn't change if you're in the city or if you're in the forest, whatever.
So if Nizik gets to keep the carcass, then he should be one to pay. It's like you have like a piece of furniture that you don't want anymore.
Right.
Whoever picks it up and
yeah. So the interesting thing here is that even though the Nizik keeps it, but the Mazik has to be the one to arrange for him to get it. Yeah, that's what we're learning over here. And then the mazik has to pay the difference in price between what he caused and that.
Just for a moment, remember, it reminded me of the butcher store joke, where the guy goes into there's two butcher stores, one across the street from here, he goes into store A, he says, how much are lamb chops? Because lamb chops are $2 a pound. So he says, well, let me have a dozen. I don't have any lamb chops left. So he goes back across the street. He goes, how much are lamb chops by you? He goes, oh, $3 a pound. $3 a pound? He says, why so much? He says, it's $2 a pound across the street. He goes, well, why don't you buy them across the street? He goes, he doesn't have any. He says, well, if I don't have any, I'll charge you $1.50 a pound. You get it? Look at it.
Yeah, it's really funny. This is really, that reminds me of another joke, something called base point pricing in steel. If I have a factory here and you want to buy steel next to the factory, they charge you from Detroit, say, or Birmingham, wherever it's made. It might be made in that factory, but they have a center from which they charge you, even though it didn't come from there.
Oh.
It's called base point pricing.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that was deemed illegal because you have to charge them from the local place.
Oh.
So how does that connect with this?
Uh-huh. Here we're saying that that at least in our scenario, the price doesn't change between where you're bringing it from,
Right.
and we're ignoring the mazik has to bring it, but we're ignoring that the if there has a different value when it's in the pit or if it's out of the pit on the item itself. Yeah, we're ignoring that.
This factory is in Pittsburgh.
So one thing about the beam is not like always true. If you learn from Haram, when you give a whole meal in the middle of the desert, it's like priceless.
Right.
A bottle of water also.
Right. Yeah, it's not always true. Okay. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, "Ain't shaman leilagan of leilagas and elul in nezakin." Shmuel says that we're talking about over here when there's a damage, that you have to evaluate the broken pieces, and the perpetrator has to pay the difference between what it was worth originally and what it's worth now that it's been broken. What are those pieces worth? And you pay the difference. Shmuel says that you only do that for nezakin, you don't do it for a thief. If a thief or a robber steals something and it breaks, you don't pay the difference in price between what it was worth when he stole it and what it's worth now that it's broken. You have to give him a brand new item. You have to pay for the value of the new item that it was worth, and the broken pieces is his problem. He has the robber has to, the thief has to take care of that. That's not part of his. That doesn't go into the calculation. Once there's a change in the item, he pays for it as it was when he stole it. Bani Aimer, and I say, Shmuel continues, Aflashal. The same thing applies to a borrower. Now, a borrower has to pay, he has the highest responsibility, and he has to pay even if an accident happens. If someone borrows a lawnmower or something, and then it breaks, so he has to pay for a new lawnmower, or at least what it was worth when he borrowed it. You can't say 1 second there's no lawnmower. Yeah, take it and try to get it fixed, and I'll pay what are the fixing thing. No, 1 second. 1 second. I'm jumping ahead. He says aflashal. The same thing applies to a borrower. Now, it's unclear what he means. The same thing. Does he mean the same thing applies? Because the problem is, Shmuel said, for nezikin, you evaluate the broken pieces. For a robber, you don't evaluate the broken pieces. And the same thing applies to a borrower. Now, the same, which one of them? The nezikin or damages or robbery? He doesn't say. You can't say two things and then say and also. Right? You have to, and then you say and also, you don't know which one it's referring to. So and he adds on, he says, "For Abba Maidali." Abba is a nickname for Rav, or maybe that's his real name. Abba is the father. The father agrees to me. That means Rav agrees. Well, the Gemara says, Ibailo, they have a question. Does he mean that you evaluate for the borrower, which means that just like by the damage, you have to take a look at the broken pieces, the broken lawnmower, and you pay him the difference in price between what it was worth when he borrowed it and what it's worth now that it's broken. Or Rabbi Maidli and Rabbi agrees. Maybe what he meant to say is Aflashal ain't shaman. Maybe you don't evaluate the broken pieces for a borrower. And Abba Maidli and Rav agrees. Well, Tashima, come and listen. We have a question over here, what Shmuel meant and what Rav meant. Because whatever it is, they hold the same. Well, Dahu Gavra was a person, the Shal Naga Mechavri, he borrowed a Naga. Naga is an axe. What do they say over there, an axe? Borrows an axe from his friend Tavra, and it broke. Asalakami the Rav, he comes to Rav. I remember I was introducing a guy that had moved into the community to his neighbor. This guy was a very funny guy. Anyway, he goes over.
Wait, which guy? The guy who moved in or the neighbor?
The guy that moved in. So we go over to this neighbor's house, and anyway, so he says, "Yeah, I just moved in. So I just want to let you know before we start, I do not have an extension cord." Okay, so anyway, he borrows an axe from his friend and it broke.
Wait, which one said that?
This is the guy that just moved in. Asalakami the Rav, he comes to Rav. This guy, it broke, the axe broke. Amalei Zil Shlimle Nargamal, you go pay him for a brand new axe. Can't take the broken wooden handle and with the metal on top and just say, well, we'll get a new handle and we'll fix it and it's going to be. Rav said, you have to buy him a new one, and you stuck the borrower is stuck keeping with the broken pieces. Shmamina, we see clearly Rav holds Ein Shaman, that it goes under the category of the thief and the robber, not under damages. The Gemara says, 1 second, Adarab, on the contrary. Midarmile Rav Kana Ravasi Rav, Rav Kana and Ravasi, very common when Rav says a halacha, that Rav Kana and Ravasi challenge Rav. They were 2 students of Rav and they challenged him. And it says, Dina Hachi, is that the halacha? Bishasik. Rav was quiet. Shma Mina Shaman. We see the opposite, that Rav really held, because Rav changed his mind now, because when he was quiet, he changed his mind. Rav really held that you do evaluate for the borrower, which means someone borrows that lawnmower or an axe and it breaks, you evaluate the broken pieces and you say, here's the broken pieces, and I'll pay you the difference between what it was worth then and what it's worth now, which is probably the price of fixing it. And not necessarily, but it could be. So, and then that's what he has to pay the difference.
It's a paperweight. I mean, it's useless. So at the end of the day, pretty much would be.
Well, that's because we always think about, we live in a different, like, disposable society. I mean, you throw out a watch and you get a new watch. And in the olden days, you didn't do that.
You
A broken axe, you just put a new handle on it, yeah.
Oh.
We don't even fix our shoes anymore. Are there even people? I don't even know if there are people that fix shoes. They just get a new shoe.
It's been a while since on the airports, but airports used to be shoe shine.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen the shoe shine people, but I'm talking about a guy that actually puts on a new sole. A new, you can find someone?
Used to be in the Skylight Mall, 163rd. I don't know if they're around.
Would it be okay, like for example, the lawnmower, if you take it to like a lawnmower repair place, they fix it and then you return it like good as new?
Right.
So the person that you borrowed it from doesn't have to go through that like trouble. He gave you a working lawnmower, and you
if you get it fixed, that's probably good. I can't make any halachas. The Daf Yomi is not halachas yet, but that would probably be good. That what we are saying over here is that you don't have to. Maybe you don't have to go through it. Maybe you just pay the difference of what it was worth originally, and you can give it to him.
But then he didn't go through the struggle of fixing.
Yeah, but you're at least you're paying the value of the damage.
According to Hillel's shot, so if a guy's chopping wood in the forest and the metal flies off the handle, accidentally kills somebody, and he's supposed to be then running to refuge C, but he fixes the handle and gives it back to the owner. Says, "Well, you're looking at me." Look at the owner.
Okay,
Something
It's
you
my-
can't undo.
We have a statement from Amirayim. What's going to happen now is Rebbe Lazar is a sage that lives in Eretz Yisrael. He's a student and a friend of Rabbi Yochanan. Ula is a traveler. Now, Ula is going to come from Eretz Yisrael. He's going to come to Bavel, and he's going to give, I think, about 7 statements here from Rebbe Lazar. Okay, so the first one starts like this. Amar Ula, Amar Rebbe Lazar. Ula says the name of Rebbe Lazar, Shaman Laganav Lagazlan, that we actually do evaluate for the Gazlan, Ganav and the Gazlan, different than Shmuel. And, right, well, in Eretz Yisrael, they pass different than Shmuel, according to what Ula is bringing. That you do evaluate the difference if a thief stole and it broke the item, so he has to pay back the difference in price of what it was worth when he stole it and what it's worth now that it's broken, and you give the broken pieces back to the original owner. Rav Papi Amar Ein Sham. Rav Papi says you don't do that. You have to pay back the original item, the original value. You don't give the broken pieces. The Hilchas Argamar Paskins, it says Ein Sham and Leila Ganav Leila Gasan, that you do not do that evaluation. We go like Shmuel, go like Rav Papi. You have to give him a brand new, not a brand new, but what it was worth at that time. But when it comes to a borrower, you can evaluate, and you do give him the similar to damages. Could Rav Kana and Ravasi, like Rav Kana and Ravasi told Rav, that the borrower is similar to someone that's damaged, that you evaluate the broken pieces. Ula says the name of Rabbi Lazar, another halacha, totally nothing to do with Baba Kamma. But what happens is that a woman that gives birth, she's tamei for 7 days if it's a male, or she's tamei for 14 days if it's a female. Then she has days of purity. If it's a male, it's 33 days, and if it's a female, it's what is it, 60? Yeah, 66 days. 66 days. Those are days of purity. So let's say the woman, we don't know, she's not really sure what she gave birth to, what it is, but she has an afterbirth that comes out. You know, sometimes like in miscarriages or something, they don't really know like what came out, what didn't come out, but there's an afterbirth. So if the afterbirth, the placenta, is the afterbirth the placenta? The placenta comes out a little bit on one day and a little bit on the next day. You count from the first day because we assume that if there's a placenta, that probably the actual fetus, whatever was left of it, was coming out with that placenta that it came out in the first day, and therefore that's considered the birth. Count from the first day. Okay, that's what Ula brings from Belasa. Amar Rava, ma daitach. Rava says to Ula, what are you saying? What's your intention? L'chumra, you're trying to be machmer on her, that you count from the first day. Chumra dasili de kulu. It's a chumra, it's a stringency, but it comes out to be a leniency. The komateris lamirishan, because now she had to wait 14 days. Let's say we don't know if it's male or female. She has to wait 14 days to become pure. Now she only has to wait 13 days because yesterday was the final day. So you think you're being strict, you're actually being lenient. Elama Rava says you can't be like that. We suspect to that from the yesterday, but the counting we have to count from today, which means we need another 14 days, not another 13 days. We count it from the second day. My kamashmalan, what is Rava coming to teach us? They mix a shilia b'lei blah, and not what is Rava coming to teach us. What is Ula and Rabbi Lazar coming to teach us? That whenever there's an afterbirth, that means there had to be a fetus somewhere in there as well. Tanina, I know that from other sources. I don't need an Amira to tell me that an afterbirth means that there was also a fetus somewhere. What's the source? It's a Mishnah or a Brisa. Shil yashatza michtzasa. This is your favorite topic, Fempakua. If there's an animal that was being shechted and it sticks out a limb, so then it sticks out there's a fetus inside. The fetus sticks out a limb, so the shechita doesn't help for that limb. Let's say it was then what happens is you can eat the whole animal, but not that limb, because the shechita on the mother helps for the rest of the animal, everything that's inside, including the fetus. But the limb that was born needs its own shechita. You can't shecht it because the rest of the animal doesn't need shechita. So that's a problem. Over here, sorry? Yeah, probably. Right. Right. Here, the fetus, you don't see the actual fetus, but what you do see is the placenta coming out. Now, if the placenta is coming out, the placenta is the afterbirth. It's like a little sac, a little bag that's attached with fluids, I think. Anyway, when that comes out before the shechita, so then you can't eat the entire placenta. You can't eat the entire fetus because this came out. Asur b'achila. The whole thing is asur, because our assumption is that when you shech the mother, then you would need to shech the whole thing. Yeah. The fetus. Our assumption is that since the majority of the fetus came out with the shilya, with the afterbirth, so that was considered that it was born already. See, if it sticks out a leg, then it's not considered born, it's still considered inside. But if the head comes out and the majority comes out, then we consider it born, and then it needs its own shechita. So over here, because the placenta comes out, we don't know where it is. Because of that doubt, we have to say that it's considered born. Asura b'achila.
Two theoreticals. I don't remember if we run this at the core, but if the head came out and then went back in,
It's too late.
why? But you could shech the head because we always say you can't shech the head.
Yeah, but it needs shechita. Not too late. It needs shechita.
So then, if you could do shechita on the head afterwards, and would the head be permissible too?
And the animal would be permissible.
What about the head?
Yeah, because it came out. It was already born. We consider it born.
No, I'm saying in the Ben Pekua case.
Yeah, but going back in, I think once it's born, it doesn't matter if it goes back in.
Oh, so if the head came out,
I think the head comes out. I think it's considered born. Either the head or the majority.
I mean, I never heard of the head going back in.
Right. Now in Shulchan Aruch, there's this thing about a woman that they heard the baby cries coming out, but then she said she didn't give birth. Then she gave birth a day later, and meanwhile they heard the baby crying. There's like these wild stories.
For the baby animal, they wouldn't be able to slaughter in the same day.
Yeah, there's a problem to slaughter the same day. Correct. So siman vlad beisha, siman vlad behema. If it's just like it's a sign that there was a birth, the placenta is a sign that there was a birth. So too by a woman, there's a sign that's birth. So too by an animal, it's a sign that there was a birth. So why do I need Ula to tell me that this is a sign that there was a child there? Ula in the name of Rebbe Lazar, that we have to start counting. Gemara says, and if it would only be from that Mishnah Hava, I mean, I would have thought the Yesh Mikta Shilya B'Leivad. Truth is that it is possible for a placenta to come out without any child in there. So why are you not allowed to eat it? The Mishnah says you're not allowed to eat it without shechita. Gzeira would have made a decree, Mikta Satukula. I would have thought that if a little bit comes out, if you're allowed to eat that, I would have thought maybe if it all comes out, you're allowed to eat it. So we had to make a decree that you don't. But that doesn't mean that that every time there's a mikta shilya, every time there's a partial placenta that's born, I have to start counting as if there's a birth. When it comes to eating, I would have made a decree. The Mishnah would only think that it's a decree because of eating. It comes out, it goes back in. So we made a decree. But when it comes to a birth, I wouldn't have thought that she would become tummy because maybe there was no birth here. Wouldn't make her tummy from a doubt. So kamash malanula, that no, when it comes to the birth, we make her tummy as well. Okay, another case from Ula in the name of Rabbi Lazar. This is number 3, I guess. Amar Ula, Amar Rabbi Lazar, if there is a firstborn child that was born, and at day 31 you have to do a pidyon ben. But what happened over here is that the baby was killed. Nitraf, it was like torn up. Maybe an animal came, and so you don't have to do the pidyon ben. Rami also taught this that it says you should surely redeem. Even maybe you should have to do the redemption even if it was killed during the 30 days. It says which means that you chalak, it means it divides it up. That this case excludes that this you don't have to do a redemption. Now it would have been right, but this would have been clear if it would have been if it would have died naturally, because if it didn't live to 30 days, then I would just say that it didn't survive. It would be considered a nafel. Here we're saying that it could have lived naturally, but an accident happened, right? An unpreventable circumstance. And so then we say, nevertheless, you still don't have to do the Pidina Ben. Says, you can acquire a big animal by pulling it. We learned in the Mishnah that you only need to do Masira, you only have to hand over the reins. Like buy a car, you hand over the keys. How do you buy an animal? What's acquisition? You take the reins, the string that's attached, and you hand it over to the other guy. He takes it, and that's so here. But here he's saying, Ula saying, name Rabbi Lazar, that you have to pull it. Because the reason is because he's following this other brisa. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Achamim say that whether it's a small animal or a big animal, not young and small, it's different types of animals, cows versus sheep. You have to pull it. Reb Shimon says you have to lift it up. Now, there's a problem. How do you lift up an animal that size? You put it on things and you have it walk up. You have it step up on something. Okay. Ula says, Amar Rabbalas, name Rabbalas. This is number 5, probably. Brothers that divided. Mashaleim shaman and mashal b'neiim u'b'neiseim ein shaman. If they're using clothing from the estate, and now they're dividing the estate, they have to take a evaluation of what clothing they're wearing before they divide up everything. So that way they can put it all into the same pot. When it gets split up, you have to take into account the clothing that they're wearing. However, what their families are wearing, you don't take into account. We felt that wasn't respectful to the other people in the family to have to come in and check out their clothing, what they were wearing, and to put that in. So it's only what the brothers themselves are wearing, but not what their children and daughter, what their sons and daughters are wearing. Amar Papa says, sometimes you don't even evaluate what they're wearing. Why not? Papa says it could be a case, the Gadlachi, the spokesperson of the brothers, he might have to go to court, he might have to do things in order on behalf of the estate. And so therefore he takes clothing from the estate in order to represent the brothers properly. So they may want him to be dressed up. So they're going to make the division of the estate after that clothing is removed, right? It's like the lawyer's fees would be after, right? They divide it after the right after they pay the lawyer. Then whatever's left they divide. There's nothing left. Yeah, okay. Yitzi, you here? Amar Rabbi Lazar. Ula says name Rabbi Lazar. Shemer Shemasul Shemer. Potter. A watchman that gives over to another watchman, he's exempt from payments. It's not, in other words, usually there's a certain amount of payment that a watchman has. Let's say he's a Shemer Chinam, he has to pay for negligence, but he doesn't have to pay for if it's stolen. He's a Shemer Sacher, he has to pay for stolen, but he doesn't have to pay for accident. So he's going to have to pay for whatever level he's on, but he doesn't have to automatically pay for accidents because you gave it to someone. Right? I never gave you permission for that. Not only if the person, the original borrower, Ruvain, hands it over to Shimon, that's a Shemer Sacher, that's a that he improved the responsibility. Now this person is a higher responsibility. I'll feel Shemer Sacher, but even a Shemer Sacher, Ruvain was a Shemer Sacher, he gives it to Shimon, that's a Shemer Chinam. Now he's decreasing the level of responsibility. Nami Pater, he's also Pater if an accident happens, even though he's a Shemer Sacher. He's exempt from accidents, and he handed it to a Shemer Chinam, so maybe that's considered like lowering. No, he's still exempt from accidents. Sheimasala ben das. Because he wasn't just negligent there, he gave it to someone that was an intelligent person. So that was acceptable. That was the statement of Ula in the name of Rabbi Lazar. Rava says different. Shemer Shemasul Shemer is chayiv. It's automatically chayiv. If you hand it over to someone else, not only if he was originally a Shemer Sacher, a paid watchman, and gives it to a Shemer Chinam, through Garlish Mirase, that he decreased the level of watching. But even if he's a Shemer Chinam that's giving to a Shemer Sacher, that means he's increasing his level of responsibility, but he's still going to be chayiv what are we starting off over here? He's a Shemer Chinam. If anything else happens, he's going to be chayiv. If anything happens, even if it's stolen or an accident, is going to be chayiv. Darmalei, because the original owner, he says to the watchman, he says, the first one, I only trusted you, because if you're going to swear to me that an accident happened or if it got stolen, I would trust you. But that other fellow, I don't trust him. So even if he's going to swear, I don't trust him with his oath. So therefore, you're responsible to pay for whatever happens, even if if they claim it's an accident. He says, I don't trust him. Okay, I have to stop over here. Avin Nassim tomorrow will, Bezos Hashem, will teach tomorrow's